Welcome to Threads of Enlightenment, your journey into personal growth. The splendor of any decision is after you've made it, all that remains to be seen are its consequences. My name is Ken Primus. I am your host. Here at Threads of Enlightenment, we talk about the principles of self-development and personal growth. By having conversation with people who have walked through their journey of personal growth, we believe that everyone at some point in their life will have to deal with one or more of these principles to have the privilege of focusing on their self-development as humans. These principles, when applied, can help you to become the best self possible. Welcome to this episode of Threads of Enlightenment. My name is Ken Primus. I am your host. In this episode, we're going to deal with damaging or conquering damaging habits. If you are following our podcast, it is in sequence. We last talked about attitudes and how attitudes play a part in our development and in our growth. And we talk about forgiving people and so forth. We're going to deal with conquering damaging habits. And why we want to focus on this is that our habits become our lifestyle, our who we are, who people see, and when they look at on us, we behave certain ways. And so these habits that we form, that you and I form in our life, they are those things that will cause us to make decisions and behave a certain way. And I have a saying that I say that all of our habits, good or bad, have made us who we are today. And so we have to learn to identify and conquer those damaging habits. I had to do it in my life. It is a sobering place that you have to visit and deal with. To be honest with yourself, you actually have to be honest with yourself in this aspect and in this part of your development. There are studies out there. There's so many studies out there that shows that how our habits damage our brains. I know some of the basic habits that we do that as a result damage the brains out there. There's studies out there that no breakfast, overreacting, smoking, high sugar consumption. Those are just stuff to affect our brains, and then there are habits that affect our behaviors. And we have to learn how to break them, how to conquer. The word that I use is conquering. And conquering has the meaning for that is it means to overcome, to be victorious over. And there's a reason why I said conquering. I use the term conquering damaging habits because it's not like you're breaking your habit. It's much more involved than that. And so, you have to learn how to be, to judge yourself with love, but with a deep sense of honesty and recognizing that where you are in your development in your life, and that you want to move on from this particular area in your life. And, you have to go back in and take a search and see what brought you here, what caused you to be in this place. Was it a hurt? They say stress, boredom, all those type stuff help causes bad habits. But those are just surface stuff, I think. But there's more, there's 99% of us have self-destructive behaviors. And so those behaviors came about as a result of those habits. Because like I said, your habits will take you to your behaviors, and you're going to behave a certain way based on your habits. And so when we come back, we're going to take a little break. I just wanted to go in and give you an overview of what we are about to do, and so that we can delve into this topic about conquering our damaging habits and to be victorious on the other side. I'm going to give you guys some tools. We're going to go back and we're going to get some information some nuggets, some wisdoms, and then my hope is that you will take these and that you will change your life, because the purpose of this podcast is for you to become victorious in your life, and that you will recognize these stages or states that you're in. And that was the purpose of the book that I wrote with Rade, Threads of Enlightenment. It basically tells you certain states, and once you recognize the states that you're in, then you're able to move forward, and you begin to change your life. And those states that I had mentioned are each chapter we try to focus on a state. And the first state that we talked about from the beginning of this podcast is self-love, then solitude, unchecked emotions, forgiving others, attitudes of success, conquering your damaging habits, giving of yourself is chapter 7. Chapter 8 is discovering your gift, how to begin using your gift, and the power of words. And so these states that you and I have to go and visit in order to progress and to become mature human spirits, that we in turn can turn around and be of help, be of guidance, be of support to someone else. The purpose of getting your deliverance is not to be selfish about it, but in turn to turn around and help someone that really truly needs it. And so we are in chapter 6 of my book, Conquering Damaging Habits. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to take a little break, and then we'll be right back. Welcome back to Threads of Enlightenment. This is really some good stuff, because I remember going through my part in my life and my development, and my damaging habits and so forth. Buddha's little instruction book by Jack Cronfield is one of my little, a little tool that I had used to help me, and one of the books that I brought up my children on was those nuggets to help them as well as to help me. And there's one that he had said, you don't have to believe your judgment. They are simply old habits. And so I know one of my sons, his habit that he had was procrastination. I know another one of my sons, one of his thing was he just hated doing certain things. And I had to teach him how to rewire his brain. And it's not about, it's your perspective of how you look at certain things will help you to get past that particular thing really quick. And as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, when I said all of your habits, good or bad, they truly have made you who you are today. And so when people look at you, they look at your habits manifesting and causing you to behave a certain way. And you must become, at this juncture in your life, you must become a student of yourself. Or you must become a student of yourself, because what you're going to find out as you begin to work on this part of your life is that, or this part of your development, that you have, you've identified some self-destructive behaviors that you have. And again, those they manifest as a result of your habits. And so, one of the things that leads you into destructive behavior, a habit that we have, is the habit of, that is fueled by low self-esteem. And that low self-esteem habit is a view of what you look at yourself in a negative view. And, you start saying stuff like, no one wants me, I'm worthless, I'm not doing anything with my life, I'm wasting my life. All of these things from a position of a low self-esteem, that habit of just judging yourself. And there's another nugget from Jack Cronfield's book. It says, a day judging another is a painful day. A day spent judging yourself is a painful day. And so what he's basically saying is that we have to stop looking at ourselves. We have to stop judging ourselves because of the habits that we've developed that has caused us to behave certain ways. And you have to start looking for triggers in your life. There's emotional triggers, there's environmental triggers. There are all kinds of different triggers that you have to, as I mentioned, you have to become a student of yourself in the way that you have to begin to study what promotes this behavior, what habit causes you to, that emotional trigger. What is it? And so as you begin to study yourself, I know a lot of people go to get therapy on that stuff, but the therapist basically is rerouting you back to yourself. And so you have to learn there are all the different triggers that will come into your life. You have your family dynamics. You have friends that will trigger you. Social media today triggers people. You have the culture, religion, all these different things. A learned environment. These things are your triggers that you have to become aware of. And as I mentioned to you before, a therapist will simply reroute you. They'll listen to you, but they will reroute you back to, they'll be asking you these probing questions that you can ask yourself and begin to work on yourself as well. And so it is very important that, as I mentioned earlier, that you be honest with yourself. And that is the beginning, I believe, to conquering this, your habits, your bad habits. They say you have to, as you begin this journey, you have to develop a strategy, all these different things. But they say roughly about 66 days is how it takes to overcome or break a habit. But I like the word overcome more so than breaking, because what I suggest people to do is not focus on trying to break it. As I mentioned it there before, all of your habits, good or bad, have made you who you are. What you're trying to do from this point, once you have identified a habit that you deemed not profitable for your life and for your behavior and the way you're seen and known, once you've identified those, then you have to learn how to replace it with something else, something stronger, something that will cause you to push through when those times are hard. One of the first things you're going to have to learn how to work on is you're going to have to get motivated. You're going to have to get motivated about moving from this habit that you have identified as one that is damaging in your life, and to get to the other one that you will replace it with. You have to recognize the reason as to why that habit was there in the first place. How did you develop it? Where did it come from? What is the root of it? So that you can begin to dissemble that behavior as it begins to manifest in your life. You have to find a replacement for it. A simple one for exercise. If you just don't exercise and you're sitting around, the replacement, which you can see basically, is to get up and exercise. But that's not an easy thing to do. It's easy to recognize, but it's not an easy thing to do. And so these are the battles, the internal struggles that you will have as an individual to become victorious and to conquer your damaging habits. The other piece is that you once you find that replacement, then you'd have to maybe just continue and push through. Then you're going to have to develop a strategy once you've found that replacement that you want to put in place, and then you have to learn how to be patient, because everyone that heals and is going on a journey, it doesn't go to it's not a straight line. And you can see that in a plane. When a plane has a destination, it's leaving from A to B. It'll start from A, and it's not a straight line. It has pockets. It has all these different things. It goes off course. That's why on the airplane you have the instruments to help you, to bring you back on course. And so you have to have those instruments to bring you back on course. And those instruments basically that you're going to be using is your strategy that you have developed to push through to get to the destination of replacing this bad habit with a good one. And so I cannot stress to you how important it is that you have to be, you have to be honest with yourself. This is not for the weak person. This is going to take everything that you have to push through, but you have to want it. You have to motivate yourself each time. You have to talk to yourself, and that's why one of those chapters that we talked about in the book is the power of words. And because you're going to have to communicate with yourself, you're going to have to encourage yourself. You're going to have to get beyond what you're used to, and you're going into something new. And so it's going to take some time, and you have to learn to be patient. I have a saying where it talked about replace your bad habits. Don't try to destroy them, for they have served you well. And so you're trying to replace it and create a new you, a new a version of you that you have in your head, because it's going to take all of that working together, envisioning yourself being to the other side. Stress is going to happen. You're going to boredom where you want to regress, but you have to stay motivated. You have to get up, find friends. Once you've chosen a strategy, find people that can support you. Friends that are going in the same direction. You're going to have to, as I mentioned, identify all those triggers that, if it's food, you have to identify your triggers. If it's an emotional thing, as I mentioned, you have all kinds of triggers that you have to be aware of. And that is why I say that you have to become a student of yourself. You're going to know your emotional triggers when it begins to happen. You're going to recognize your environmental triggers. And these triggers, they are familiar to you. They are the entrance into the bad habits, that behavior. And so once you recognize those signs, it's really important that you begin to move away from there. Once you recognize those signs and you have to change your perspective, which I mentioned to you. Changing your perspective is one of the keys, because now if you take something that is bad that happens to you, and if you change the perspective of that, says, okay, this is a lesson that I can learn. What can I pull out of that? You will pass through your situation much quickly. You have to practice several things. Meditation is one of the things that I suggest. We talked about solitude. It's not a place of, weakness. Solitude is a place of strength. Your meditation, you're practicing mindfulness, where you're aware of, those triggers and how you can get yourself out of it. And so, surround yourself with friends, establish a support system. This is one of your strategies as you begin to develop your strategies, because this is some serious stuff that you're going on. This is a tough journey, and there are going to be times that you're going to need some support. You're going to need some support from someone. So find a friend. Let your friend know that you're beginning this journey, and that you will, from time to time, call for your support, and their support, and that you want to just, help them walk you through some of these things. You got to find someone. Surround yourself, as I mentioned, with people who live the way you want to live. You're going to, you find, as I mentioned, find a friend. You have to learn how to visualize yourself, getting to the other side. Visualize yourself succeeding, breaking through, behaving certain ways. These are the things, all these tools. You have to watch what you say. As I mentioned to you, it's very important you watch what you say, because your words, there's a principle that power of words, their life, death and life is in the power of the tongue. And so there are principles in the book of Proverbs that talks about a man shall eat good from the fruits of his lip. And so the principle is basically what you say, you're going to believe it at some point in time in your life. And so what people say to you, you believe it, because that's what got you into this situation in the first place. How people spoke to you, you're no good, you're worthless, you're all this kind of stuff. And it places you in a state of low self-esteem. As a result of low self-esteem, you began to speak certain things, and eventually you believe those things. You believe what they said. You start saying stuff like, they're right. I'm stupid, and all that type of stuff. And so you begin to confess what they spoke about you, their opinion of you. And once you begin to confess, there's another principle in the Bible where Jesus told his disciples, he said, take no thought saying. And so the principle is that people can say to you whatever they want to say to you, but you do not take it by saying it. You took it into your spirit, you took it into your soul, and you begin to confess this, and it becomes real to you. And so take no thought saying. So when people say things about you, that's their thought, or their opinion of you. That's not who you are. You have to develop now a strong opinion of who you are. And one of the things that you're going to be focusing on is replacing your bad habits that you have developed as a result of what you have believed, past belief system that you're about to change. And as I mentioned earlier, Jack Canfield states, a day spent judging another is a painful day. A day spent judging yourself is a painful day. And so you have to stop judging people because that person also is dealing with their stuff. And so you have to not focus on anyone. You have to surround yourself, like I said, with people. This is a battle. This is not going to be easy. And so you have to, those principles or those tools that I spoke of earlier, you have to get motivated. You have to identify first because you're breaking patterns, and these patterns have been you have developed them year over year, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, and so you have to. This is what you're up against, and however that pattern was developed in your life or came about. You have now decided within yourself, that, okay, this is no longer going to be who I am. I'm going to create a new me, and I'm going to create the new me. And the principles and the tools that you're going to need is, number one, you're going to have to get motivated, and you're going to have to, this motivation is not going to be up there all day long. That's why you need to surround yourself with friends that will help you to get motivated, with people that are heading in the same direction that you're going. Sometimes you may not have anyone going there, but you have a friend that you can call just to encourage you and tell you that, and say, hey man, hang in there. Like I said, sometimes it's good to let a friend know that if you have a really good friend, tell him where you want to go. Tell them where you're heading, so that they can also help you when your motivation gets weak. And it will get weak. And so you have to get motivated. You have to recognize your reasons, those bad habits. And they're difficult, like I said, because they're patterns. They're patterns that we have developed over the years in our life. And so you have to recognize the reasons of how you got there. And you have to find that replacement that you want to replace that behavior with, that habit with. As I mentioned, your habit will dictate your behavior. And so the core of how you are behaving is due to that habit that you have developed. And so we are now replacing this habit, which in turn will replace your behavior or change your behavior. And so you have to develop a strategy that how you're going to now battle this thing that you will learn how to conquer. Because again, I mentioned that word conquer or conquering damaging habits because I wanted you to understand that this is a little warfare or a little battle that you're in. And it's not going to be an easy thing that it popped up one day and then you're out of it and all that kind of stuff. No, this is going to be a serious kind of like a battle, because you're going to have to overcome. You're going to have to become victorious over this in order to be that new person. As I mentioned, you choose your strategy, and you're going to have to learn to be patient. You're going to have to learn to be kind to yourself. You're going to have to learn to encourage yourself. You're going to have to learn to speak wonderful things about yourself. You can do this. I believe in you. I love you. We are, begin to talk to yourself. Encourage yourself. Don't look to people all the time. Within that motivation is that piece where you're looking to yourself. But also, as I mentioned, let a friend know, so that some people can join with you to help with your motivation when it gets weak, because it will get weak, and learn and study yourself to figure out your triggers, your emotional triggers, your environmental triggers, your cultural triggers, your church triggers, whatever those triggers are. You're going to have to find out what they are, because once you recognize them, then you can begin to protect yourself or to guard yourself or to respond differently. And I mentioned your support system, all of these different things, because I had to do it, and I made it through, and that is why I'm able to come to you to let you know what to do in order for you to make it through. That's why I say when you make it through, you're going to be able to turn to someone and then help them to make it through. And so the goal at this site is that we would help each other to become better human spirits, that you and I will forever, become bigger and beautiful, how we truly are supposed to be, and that we would respond to each other in kindness and respect, because if you respect yourself, you will respect me. If you don't respect yourself, you will not respect me, because if think about that for a minute. If you don't respect yourself, how in the world would I expect you to respect me? And your behavior will let me know. From all those habits that you have developed will let me know if you respect yourself, and based on that, you will have a response towards me. And so if I see you disrespecting yourself, I will never expect you, or I shouldn't expect you to respect me. And so the goal is that we will learn from each other, and that we will grow, as my term that I use, to become better human spirits. And in return, we can look to someone and help them from where they're at, that we will all grow together and mature as better human on this planet while we're here. We can teach our families, our friends, those that are in pain, how to get out once we're out. But as I mentioned in the beginning of this podcast, all of our habits, good or bad, have made us who we are today. And think about that for a minute. How you're behaving today is due to a habit. And so if you want to change how you behave, if you're serious about it, then I suggest that you take the steps necessary that I'd laid out to you to how to break that. And as I mentioned to you before, that studies shows that it's somewhere about 66 days to really overcome or to conquer that habit. And so that's in itself is a journey. And so until our next episode, I want you guys to enjoy the journey and that you would grow, because our goal is to move from one to the other, to become strong, that we may be able to help someone else in a similar situation. I will see you next time, and thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment. I do appreciate every single one of you that are listening to this podcast. I pray that you invite other people, your friends that are on the same journey, looking to change their life, whether it's friends, family members, whoever you want to invite. I welcome you to do that, and that you and I and all of them would grow together and change our life. I'll see you next time. Bye. Everyone who's listening to this podcast, we hope to continually help you to learn how to embrace moments of darkness, because it is in the darkness that we learn how to develop and use our abilities to truly see those parts of ourselves often invisible to us in the light. It becomes your responsibility to navigate through all of your trials, to find out who you truly are and begin your journey to loving yourself, which is possibly one of the most difficult things you will ever do in your life. To love yourself and to find the real you. But always remember to enjoy the journey. Thank you for coming by. Please subscribe. And if you can support us financially, we deeply appreciate it. You can do this by hitting the heart button. Until next time, invite your family, friends, neighbors, anyone that you can. You can hear us on Buzzsprout, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Music, iHeartRadio, CastBox, Overcast, and many more.